think if we just make sure that we stay in frame here, it's kind of like computer is centered. If I put this down, we just need to make sure that we don't move too much off of this line. All right, so I think we are live. See that?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Q&A. John and I are here. He's going to talk a little bit about what happened at both nests this year, and then we'll also be taking questions. So thank you so much for joining us today on Giving Tuesday. We're really excited to talk about the year and just share a couple things with you.
Yeah. So welcome everyone. I know that we have folks that are joining us here from a lot warmer places here in the country, and maybe other countries here that might watch this, about the Decorah Eagles and the Decorah North Eagles that we're going to talk about today, and a little bit about our new migration flyway camera. So we're dressed up like this. We actually went out. One of the neat things that we do is we have a couple eagles that are transmitted still, that their transmitters are still sending out radio telemetry signals. So when we know that the eagles are in the area, we go out and we can take our radio receiver and our antenna and track them. And we went out today with the intent to try to see if we could find D27, which D27 is a female.
Yep.
We know that because we trapped her. Brett Mandernack and the Eagle Valley crew trapped her and put a transmitter on her, and this is what, her second year?
This is her second year, and we were hoping to find her. We didn't, and at 13 degrees with a wind straight out of the north, that was an awful cold search.
So we're dressed a little bit warm here, so that's why we've got the plaid lumberjack shirts on here in Baklava, right?
Right.
So anyway, thank you very much for joining us on Giving Tuesday. It is Giving Tuesday today. I've been hearing that for the last week from just about everyone, but thank you. And this is really kind of just a kickoff that we've typically done for our fundraising each year, is Giving Tuesday. It's kind of the start of the Eagle nest building season. We've seen Mom Decorah and our new male doing that nest building. We've seen the eagles at the North Nest do that. I don't know about out in Colorado.
At Fort St. Vrain we've also seen the eagles on the nest periodically. So it looks like everybody is starting to get ready for the next season.
So the cams are up and going. We've got our broadcasts going. The cam operators are all ready to go and chomping at the bit. So this is really a time that we get going with things here. And so anyway, thank you for any contributions you can make to the Raptor Resource Project here on Giving Tuesday, and being generous. That's what this day is for. So whatever your passion and whatever charities or other organizations that you fund or follow, it's great that you do that. So thank you. Wanted to talk about the Decorah Eagles here. We wanted to talk about the Decorah North Eagles. It was a pretty big year. Maybe talk a little bit about the Mississippi River Flyway Cam. I was thinking about giving you guys some information. Amy and I will talk here for about a half an hour, and then we'll open up the second half of the hour here to questions, and we'll be looking into also want a big shout out to our Explorer partners who are helping us with the live stream today. Thank you very much for your support and your help. They're working hard behind the scenes to make sure that you can all see us here today and 24/7 on the live cam. So thanks, and our landowners and all of our other partners here. So we'll get right into business here, I guess. So Decorah Eagles, let's start here at the fish hatchery nest. So we all know that this was a really remarkable year. We had a shift change in eagles, right? Yeah. And we'd been talking about it. We had been wondering, what's going to happen when we lose Dad Decorah or one of these eagles? What happens? And we got to find that out this year. So it's something that we've been thinking about. We know with bald eagles and other animals that's going to happen eventually. We always hear the talk about eagles being, mating for life, and we know that that's not necessarily the case, right?
Yeah.
But this pair here, Dad Decora and Mom Decora, had been together since about 2000, late 2007, early 2008, I believe. So that's a long time. That was about 10 years. So.
And if we get the dates wrong, please apologize us. Please accept our apology. I have to tell you, dates not my strong point.
Yeah, so. I'm pretty sure that was it, because late 2007 was when they were filming American Eagle.
American Eagle.
And into the 2008 season is when most of the filming started there. So, so that really big changeover. We had that 2 very late snowstorms, and eagles can handle that. I mean, a lot of people look at the eagle streams and they say, "Oh my gosh, they look so cold," or this, that. Eagles are made for that.
Yep.
We're the 2 states with the biggest eagle populations. What is it? Alaska and either Florida or Minnesota or Iowa or something like that. I think it's Minnesota and Florida and Alaska are 3 of the largest. And we know the ones that are down in Florida, they're smaller in size and weight and everything else, but very hardy eagles here up in the North Country. What happened to Dad Decora? We never really figured out exactly what happened to him, but we lost him. And once that happened, we did our search. We could not find him. The thing that we really were interested in looking at here is, hey, what's going to happen? We've got this changeover in one of our nesting pair, and we're going to get to find that out. So a lot of questions come up there. We have 3 young that were just about getting into their thermal down phase, I think. They were starting to get their thermal down maybe like a week or 2.
And I'm going to break in here something real quick that I want you guys to know. So Dad disappears. We accept that Dad disappeared. We look for him, volunteers. We search all over. We get a drone from the Decorah Fire Department. He's gone. So now we have a really important decision to make, and that's, do we ask for permission to remove these eaglets from the nest? We don't happen to have that just sitting around on our permit. So I think John called me up and I said something, and he looked at me and he said, "Why would we take Mom's babies away from her?" And that was it. That was the decision was made then and there. They had their thermal down. We shouldn't have any more bad weather, and we decided to trust the eagles.
Right. Yeah. Very well said. And I think, if we would have looked in that season and we saw that something was happening where they were starving, or, she wasn't able to take care of them, we had a continual conversation going on about what ifs, if something like that happened. We saw, Dad stocks the refrigerator. That's one of the eagle just kind of things that you get to know about eagles. Is the male is a really, they're the food provider during that time period, and he really stocks the fridge as soon as that hatching process started. And I think we went for like 2 weeks before Mom Decora even had depleted a good chunk of what was there.
Yeah,
the suckerfish, trout, and rabbit and squirrels, and there was all kinds of stuff there. So she did a remarkable job. Amazingly, the first day after Dad disappeared, as we were down here, we started seeing some of the watchers had seen eagles and a male eagle that was down here. And I think the second day after the 18th, maybe it was like the 20th, 19th, 20th, I was down here, and we could see Mom perched above the bike path with another eagle, and we assumed it was a male. She would not tolerate a female that close, especially during that time of the nesting season. So interestingly, what we were calling Decora male showed up there almost immediately. And that kind of led to some of our thoughts of maybe, Dad got outside of the territory, or maybe there was some kind of territorial battle or something that would have led him to be gone. But we did have this male show up right away, and he never made it into the nest. Mom would never let him into the nest. He got close, and he'd kind of inch down the skywalk branch, but she would not let him anywhere near the young. So, and that leads into something that I wanted to mention. We've been talking about it, but I've got some really more detailed information here that I'm going to be sending out. We've been talking for years about how do we identify eagles and identify whether or not we have a different eagle. Are we looking at the same eagle? And early on was, boy, we might be able to do some tracking and looking closely at some of the specific patterns in the iris of the eye and beak patterns and things like that to try to verify. Because I think he had suspicion at one time that the male eagle here, Dad Decor, had changed. So he was thinking about that. During this time period, we were thinking about it too.
Yeah.
I'm just going to hold up a few pictures. This is our new unidentified male eagle number 2 is what we're calling.
Oh, and for everybody who's like, would you please do something about that name? We're kind of holding off a little bit because we had unanticipated things happen already. So yes, we will at some point do something about it. Thank you.
Right, and until they actually copulate and produce eggs and hatch, we're really not at that point.
Yeah,
where
we're not in a hurry.
A full eagle couple there, so in pair. But so I guess long story short, we have what I believe is a minimum of 3 different male eagles that were here. I don't have a picture right up front of Decora male, the one that showed up that day after Dad disappeared. But later in the summer, we noticed that Mom and the male would take off on these hour-long trips. They would take off, and people were worried. Where is Mom? Where are they? Why isn't she here taking care of them? And I think what we're looking back now, after we've identified at least 3 distinct male eagles, including the male that's here right now, UME2, that there were at least 3. So Mom Decora, we kind of been thinking that she was doing the biological thing and she was playing the eagle dating game. So she would take these trips, and what happens when eagles get together. There was obvious exchanges and introductions to other male eagles. The other eagle that we were watching there, and they were going through their molting and kind of getting back in feather mode, and we had some black fly infestations and things like that. So a lot of scratching, but you can see, this male looks kind of rough. In the molting process, was doing a lot of scratching, but I believe definitely a distinctly different male than Decora male that was here right after Dad Decora left. Interesting action that happened, which was a milestone that everybody was talking about, was that this eagle actually showed up on the Y branch after the eagles had fledged, and Mom Decora would allow him to sit that close to the 3 eaglets, D29, 30, and 31. So that was a milestone that she would let him that close. And he was around here enough that we thought that was Decora male, until we started looking at some of this detailed information. The iris information really only can do that by having close-up cameras with high definition cameras that can look at that detail and see the minor imperfections in the iris of the eyeball. And that's one thing that we use primarily over the years here to identify Mom Decora and Dad Decora. And we've also been using on these new male eagles, and we have yet to get to talk about and look in very good detail at the 2 eagles that are up at the Decora North nest. That's another story to try to parse out and figure out, do we actually have Mom and Dad North there, or do we have 2 new eagles? So that story said, just a beautiful job of Mom Decora, taking care of 29, 30, and 31 to full fledge. Yep. Not an incident. Amazing job that she did. So that was the big worry, was, is Mom going to be able to take care of these eaglets? She did a fantastic job. So now we're at the point where we've identified another eagle. We're calling him UME2. I think he was actually the first one that we were able to identify that had showed up on the nest. After the eaglets left, he showed up, and we were curious. That's the other big question, is we have a mate change here. The male has a lot to do with raptors and helping select the site. He'll show options, but the female will do the final
like
selection.
Bob used to say,
right?
she lays the eggs.
So we were concerned about, hey, are they going to come back to N2B? Are they going to, maybe go back and try to resurrect N1, or possibly go someplace totally different? And all we could do is think about our real estate transaction here of location.
Right.
We're right next to the fish hatchery. How could she ever want to leave this valley with this plentiful food source? And that turned out to be the case. So they are pretty heavy into nest building.
Yep.
I know, Amy, you've looked at the details and actually done a time lapse of some of the additions to the nest. But remember, this is a nest that we built.
Yeah.
This is a man-made nest. So this is a joint collaborative project between Raptor Resource Project and the Decor Eagles. So.
And I do think it's fun to see corn stalks. I mean, corn husk roses coming into the nest too. It's a little bittersweet, obviously, because Dad also used to do that. But I enjoy not only comparing the differences in all three nests, but also just seeing that continues to go on here. I think
Right.
It's a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah, and there's a cornfield right to the north. It's all picked and harvested, but that's chopped and silage has been pulled out, and so there's plenty of material for them to use for kind of rounding out that nest cup area and they'll tear the corn, the leaves and the other material, and they'll rip it apart and make small pieces that can be used as part of the inner part of that nest cup. And they'll probably be bringing some grasses in as we get closer to the egg laying in February. So
the things look good. We've also been asked about whether or not we think they're going to go earlier because we've seen at least one attempted copulation and because they are so active in the nest. We know from watching eagles and also falcons that when there's a mate changeover, that actually tends to push egg laying later in the next year or even next 2 years. So, personally, I would expect it maybe to be a little later than it has been the past 5 or 6 years in Decorah. But that's, I guess, just another thing that we're waiting to learn.
Right. So anyway, something to look forward to here in the next week or two. Going to Amy did a really nice blog on the whole eagle eye iris usage for eagle identity. We've gone and looked at nair shape, orientation of the nair on the beak, imperfections in the beak and different characteristics to really back up what we think is at least 3 males since the second one here. So we'll be putting out a little bit more information here in the next couple weeks on that. But very cool information and science, really, I think, in eagle identification. I don't know many other cases other than with eagle cams where people are really trying this hard to identify, do we have the same eagle or not? As far as that detail, it probably is related mostly to famous eagles. The ones that are watched by so many people. People care enough to know, is this the same eagle that I've been watching? Eagle. So with the nest preparations and pair bonding, things are well underway. Things are looking good. Knock on wood, we couldn't ask for anything better at this point. So move on to Decorah North. I think we'll look at questions here in a little bit if you have on either of the two nests here. But Decorah North, boy, what a year of change there too.
Yeah.
We had the interesting season there, only one egg laid, and then that egg being crushed after a week and a half of incubation, I believe it was, and just really everybody's spirits were just crashed to the ground there. I think when that happened, all the North Nest followers and one of our board members who raises and breeds falcons, falcons, Jim Robeson. I think you had a little bet going on with him.
Yes, I lost a bet, but I've never been happier to lose a bet.
Bet was whether or not they would reclutch, and I think we were really questioning whether or not biology would continue, and they would continue. We saw that they were continuing with the behaviors that would indicate that they're still in the mode of copulation and productive egg production and having some more eggs laid there. And what was it? I think almost a month afterwards, 3 to 4 weeks. Finally, 2 eggs were laid about 3 to 4 days apart as normal, and we were very happy to be able to see more eaglets. And we thought, wow, we're just gonna, we had eaglets hatching at
We're
the
just going
regular
to
nest. We're
extend
gonna
our
have
eaglet season.
more eaglets. The big worry was, are they going to mature enough to get to dispersal? Because they basically lost a little over a month compared to the rest of the eagles. And the heat, the gnats, kind of that being in the wrong time window of hatching of eagles, we saw what those windows overlapping could do. I think it was heat, and the eagles, mom and dad north, were keeping them covered, I think probably a lot because of the gnats. So that probably even accentuated the heat aspect even more. But they lasted just a week and perished. So we saw what people personified more as a mourning process, and just the eagles finding out that the eaglets had perished.
Yeah, and it was really disappointing because I know so many of us after the earlier egg failure and reclutching were just really excited and really felt positive about it. So it was really, we were sitting out in the Mississippi River trying to find peregrine falcons at Fire Point when John got the phone call, and it was really quite crushing. I understand. I got a lot of emails about it. We had a lot of Facebook comments about it, and I do. And of course, our excellent Decorah North chat group also fielded a lot of questions about it, and also struggled with it. It was a hard thing, and we know from watching life at our nest that things aren't always pretty. This is, as much as we watch them, they are still wild and still their own. But that was still hard.
Yeah. So there again, new territory. We had never been in that territory where we hadn't watched our parent eagles raising their young. So questions came up. Are you going to shut the cam down? Yep. What are we going to see? It's like, hey, this is something new. We've never seen this. We want to watch this. We want to detail and document what's going on here. So we did that, and I guess year of change and lots of surprises. We were watching the eagles through the summertime period, and they survived, and the nest did. I'm always amazed through the windstorms and the rainstorms, and this area has really gotten hit hard by storms and flooding. Same thing with the cam equipment, the electronics, managing through all these lightning storms and things. I guess we got to see again another eagle nest come down. I think it was August 27th. I think it was. I'm pretty sure.
I know it was the end of August.
27th.
I was actually trucking a ladder down here for work on the Mississippi River Flyway cam, and ended up driving in that storm and had to pull over. It was an unbelievable amount of water.
Yeah. So pretty sure we figured out why that nest failed, but. Very interesting nest structure. It was built on a white oak tree, where typically they will build their nest in the crotch of a tree where the weight of the nest and everything is pushing down towards the earth. Here we had a branch reaching out to the sun, and it was a Y-shaped branch, and they had started building at the apex of that, and then just built slowly up that. And this is the largest nest that we've ever seen. I believe it was probably getting about up that one direction, about 11 feet in diameter in one spot, and probably 8.5, maybe 9.
Yeah, it was big.
But what happened as you move up and those branches move apart, they're at least 4 to 5 feet apart at the far side of the nest. And what happens as these branches get wet year on year, and they start to rot, and those supporting branches are rotting. We actually have a big garden full of a ton of soil up there that is decomposing material, and that weight basically that whole nest just slumped right between the two pieces of that Y of the branch that supported that. So, and Amy did go take a look at it right away. It's like it is right underneath, and it was just a big pile of compost and small rotted branches.
I was absolutely shocked, first of all, at how much compost was in that nest. It was cubic yards of it. It would have been very heavy. Yeah. And I was actually kind of surprised that there weren't more branches in it. And then a lot of the branches broke when they hit the ground, so we couldn't reuse a whole lot of that nest. But that was a surprise to me.
So that was pretty devastating because we have all this uncertainty here at this nest with Mom Decor losing her mate of 10 years, and that uncertainty. It's like Decor North. We've always kind of considered that as our backup nest. We've got over 1,000 classrooms that tune in to watch the Decor Eagles and use that as an educational stream. It's like, how could we lose our Plan B nest in case something happened there? So we were thinking about Plan C too, and other things like that. But I think there was really not much question in my mind that we really needed to do attempt at a rebuild here. So Amy did a good job of resurrecting what we could of the competent branches that were there.
Yeah.
We looked at designs, considered possibility of moving it over to a different part of the branches, but decided to use the same nest orientation in the nest that we had. We've put pictures out there, but I'm very proud of the job that we all did kind of putting this nest together. So this is our second nest that we built, man-made nest, and basically Y-shaped branch, and we took two 4x4s and put them at two different parts, and then radially we put 2x4s on top of that, and then we put L-shaped brackets on top that the branches could be weaved around, so it couldn't slide to the side, and those 4x4s are strapped around those branches. Really, that tree is going to have to come down for that nest to fail again. There's chicken wire underneath there to stop materials from falling through. We did a pretty good job. We'll show some photos over the year here. You can still see those 4x4s, and you can see the remnants underneath. Interestingly, when the Eagles did show up, it was a little bit later, I think, than Decorah, but it's funny how it all happens at once. I remember the male here at Decorah showed up on the nest, and we got some good footage of him, and then like a day later, two Eagles show up at Decorah North. It's like, just like it happened right after each other, and it was like these days of wondering whether or not the Eagles were going to nest there and start actively looking at these nests was, it looks like they're going to. And I think at that nest we had some trout that we put up there, and they were getting pretty dry and jerky like.
Well, we didn't turn the camera on right away. Remember, we turned the camera on, and at north specifically is what I'm thinking, and the fish were still there.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh,
right.
Crap. But then he actually an eagle showed up in the nest, whoever it was, and ate some of the trout. Because you called me up, you're like, this is really funny. It's like he's looking around like he doesn't know where these came from.
Yeah.
And so Kike had left instructions, call me or text me as soon as an eagle shows up. So
right.
So we did.
So they showed up there, and it was quite some time before they actually started treating the nest like it was going to be their nest and bringing materials in there. First was somebody, scrounging after those trout scraps there of the fish that we left there. And then a little bit after that, I think it was a week or two after that, we started seeing them do their aeration with their beaks. They'll typically shape the nest, and specifically when they're identifying where they want that inner nest cup, they will aerate the nest with their beaks, and they'll move materials around. They started moving small little branches. We hauled up, I think, probably about 20 bags of composted material with small little, broken pieces of branches and things up there, and they started moving those around. And then, we pretty much know that the deal is sealed when they bring their own branches up there, and they've been doing that. And I think they've been bringing some corn husks and materials up to that nest.
They've been bringing that in grass.
So we were very happy, shooting 2 for 2 with our Eagles liking the nests that we've built. So we will take that, and I'm sure you guys are happy along with us that it looks like we're going to have 2 active eagle nests here if everything goes all right with biology and egg production, egg egg
Now we're into the next
fertilization and egg laying, that we'll be in good shape with both nests.
And before we get on to the Mississippi River Flyway Camp, Kike Arnall, our nest whisperer, if you're watching, hey, shout out to Kike.
Yeah, very good job. You're hired. All right, so we're getting here close to time for questions, but a couple other things about the North Nest. The collapse and the rebuild, like I said, that again, that couldn't have gone better. So very happy with that. They came back. We built it. They came. And now they came, but is it really who we think it is?
And that's been a question for all of us at this point. All we can say is we don't know, and we're continuing to actively discuss it, to look for some of the body features like the little white streaky pantaloons that we were used to. So I guess we'll just keep looking and talking it over, and we'll be fine.
So I guess what I'd like to see there is, you guys are citizen scientists, and I guess at this point, really the best recommendation I can make is that you could be right or you could be wrong. So respect everybody's opinions. We're going to do the best that we can to take a look at the current eagles and get that iris information, which we think is some of the best identifying metrics that we can get off those eagles. We lost the white feathers on the legs or the pantaloons that we were tracking for the last couple of years. So now the question is, hey, did they molt and did they change that much with their feathers there? We're also looking at where they roost at night, where they've been copulating, a lot of the same places, but really kind of.
But also with some different behaviors. So this is, I guess if you'd asked me last year if some of this ID would have been so hard, it would have been like, oh no, we know who's at our nest.
Right. So anyway, we're going to be working on that. We're going to dig up some of the good photos that we've had for the past 2 years and then get our good iris data and facial data from our current pair, and then we'll do some analysis and see if we can tell. I mean, from just watching the cam, I can tell you, unless there's something marked about the eagles, like the feathers or some specific trait, you are not going to be able to tell whether or not those are the same eagles or not. These metrics and getting close enough to look at the iris and some of these things. I mean, we've got folks that have been watching eagles for years, and from cameras on the ground and things like that, really didn't even think that we had as many changes that we did down at the Decorah nest here.
I didn't think we had this many changes. So, I mean, I'll admit it.
Eagles, there is such a thing as the eagle dating game also.
We should probably take some questions.
So real quick here, we're at 2:28, so I want a couple quick things. Mississippi River Flyway Cam. It sounds like you guys are enjoying that almost as much as I am and others. One of the things I like about that so much is hearing the migrating waterfowl and the tundra swans now, and even the eagles. I mean, I've been listening to eagles for so many years now. It's like I can tell exactly what those calls are and when the eagles are doing something and what they're up to. But thanks so much to our partners there, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Wildlife and Fish Refuge folks there. Hopefully we can get some live chats with a couple of the folks there. I know Hallie and Katie have talked about the possibility of doing that. They know these ducks and they know the waterfowl there, and they can answer all these questions. So I think we got viewing opportunities still. I think the overall opinion is that the migration was delayed in a lot of ways this year.
Yeah.
Whether it was all the wet weather or something to do with climate and things like that, but a lot of the diver ducks had really not shown up, and now they've recently showed up. So and really even the tundra swans seemed like the numbers had been really slow in developing there, but that will be possibly maybe in a couple weeks to a month here.
So maybe. Keep watching. Even though the river's icing up, there is more to see.
Yep, and they will congregate in those areas and eagles will be taking fish and other food around those open water areas as long as they're open.
Yep.
We watched the other day from the Great Spirit Bluff Cam when that thin layer of ice had just formed down on a couple of the islands off of that. We were watching some of the eaglets just sitting there floating downstream, and it was funny. It reminded me of a couple of the little videos that were out there of eagles on bigger chunks of ice.
Yes.
These looked like they weren't even there. It was like they're standing on the water. So I think we're to the point here where we can look at some questions here. We got about half an hour here. So I'm going to look to the live chats here for information, and I know that we've got some possibility here of having questions come up from the Raptor Resource Project site and also the Explore chat site.
While we're waiting for questions, I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of our volunteers, our moderators on all of our chats and our Facebook page for being here today, for answering questions and for celebrating the Eagles and sharing their stories. And I wanted to thank the camera operators as well. You guys, your work has really, I think, made us the very best streams on the web. And I can't begin to tell you how much we appreciate it. So
thanks so much for your help. You wrote in one of your recent posts, Amy, about how people watch the eagles and it might be eagles or it might be bears or whatever, and it's like you might be sitting there with a child on your lap and showing them something neat about nature, or as Bob used to always say, you might be in a nursing home, or you might be fighting a battle with cancer or something like that, and this seeing nature is something that really can be a reason to get up and push on another day. So
we've got a question from Judy Shep's Battle about any speculation about whether the Decorah male, so the first eagle that showed up that we were calling Decorah male, was an offspring of mom and dad. And honestly, I would love to know, but we don't have any way to tell. We know from tracking eagles that we haven't seen our eagles come right back to the nest, although we've seen them come pretty close. But we know what's happened in other places.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, though, without a band or a transmitter or some kind of ID, we simply don't know.
What I'd say is we do know enough about what the Decorah eagle offspring do because we've put transmitters on them, we tracked them, and Amy and I were out just today around the Decorah area here trying to track either D27 or D24, and we know they've come back to this area and they spend a lot of time here.
I'm going to quickly answer a question for Old Dog. Q for Amy. What is the bird on the chest behind me? Since this is quick, this is Willard's chicken with my owl hat, not an actual owl, on it. So there you go. And then we also have an eagle from Lori Carnes' class. And this beautiful painting, which you can't really see
this is actually a graphite drawing that was done by Verdell, who has also done some eagle shirts here of the Decorah Eagles, and we're going to be making this available. It's a very nice graphite, partially colorized print that we've been giving out for gifts to people, but that's what's in the background.
Ronan B asked, has D27 nested yet? No, eagles don't hit sexual maturity until they're 4.5 or 5 years old. Yeah. It's not that they all immediately start nesting then, but D27 is not old enough to have started her own family yet.
Right. And the one thing I wanted to mention about how, if we could even know whether some of these young eagles are ours, we know from the ones that we've tracked that they do tend to come back to this territory in this area. That's about the best we can say. Is we know that our Decorah eagles, even if they've been almost up to the Arctic Circle, Polar Bear Provincial Park, they come back down here in the wintertime, in the fall. So it's possible, but we'll only be able to guess. Now D27, we do know from our banding station that we did have we have our master bander Dave Kester and John Stravers out there with the Luther students trapping and banding raptors, and we almost caught D27. I can't remember if we had shared that much publicly on social media.
I think we did, but maybe we didn't. So
imagine that, D-27 coming down to one of the areas where we trap the raptors, and they see a transmitter on it, and then we look at the tracking data the next day after it comes in from the satellite, and D-27 had come right through there. So she came to say hi in person. Okay, so we got a question here. Don't recall corn stalks in the nest last year. Are the nesting materials dictated by what's available in the area? Do you remember corn cob, however, and the trio playing with it? So that's a good question. It does really depend on what's available in the area. We've caught the eagles down going onto the ground and ripping tufts of grass with their talons and flying off with it, bringing it up into the nest shortly thereafter. There's that cornfield right to the north of N2B and the former nest here, N1, in this area, and they've brought those leaves and shredded them up, and they've brought the corn stalks in. And don't forget, Decorah North, we have the first documented case of eagle farmers. They did bring up cobs of corn, and the mice that run around in there and chew and munch on those for their little midnight snacks, they missed one kernel of corn, and that grew last year to a 7-foot tall corn stalk with the ear of corn on it. And someday we might try to plant some of those little, see if they go anywhere. And then actually in our Colorado nest, which is out in a real dry area, it's kind of out on the plains, that nest is all grass. And it's really, if you go up into that one, it's a lot drier, it's not as composted, and then again, we never see corn because there's no corn out there, that's all grass. Right. Here's a little different question I think is a really good one. How can people support the Raptor Resource Project? So, there's the obvious, it's Giving Tuesday, we're doing this, there's monetary support, that's always helpful in any way that you can, whatever you can do. The thing that we also tell people, since this is a nature cam and a live cam, I guess we don't necessarily want to promote people to sit in front of a computer too long. Use what you see, use what you learn and you enjoy, and then get outside and either make a difference in your own backyards and your own communities, or share the eagles. Right. You might help educate kids, or you might, come take them on a field trip and share some of your knowledge about bald eagles with them. You might be a teacher. You might, have young kids or even old kids that haven't learned yet. So obsessively pick up trash. That always works for me. Yeah. One thing I'd like to say that's been big on my mind lately is that I lived in the country. I grew up on the country in the bluffs of the Mississippi River Valley on Minnesota side, and we've always hunted for deer and hunted in the fall. And it's been a family tradition. I remember seeing the pictures of my dad and my uncles, and it's been a way of life of bringing food onto the table. I remember, there were shy years where I didn't know that I was eating as much venison when I was a kid as I was, but for years now, I've hunted with slugs in Minnesota that were titanium and tin and copper, and I think for the hunters out there, it really is all about just planning ahead. I mean, if you care about raptors and other wildlife that can get poisoned by lead, and you're a hunter, all it takes is consciously saying, I'm going to go out and get a different type of ammunition that doesn't contain lead. And I'm going to do it for two good reasons. One, I'm not going to contaminate the meat that I'm going to eat myself and share with my family and possibly friends. And two, I'm not going to possibly get lead fragments out into the carcasses and the gut piles and the things that are going to go through the food chain. And we know just one very small little piece of lead, a couple of those is enough to kill an eagle. Yeah, right on. So I guess that's a good way if you're a hunter. And I know there's a lot of hunters out there. That'd be a huge impact if we could get hunters to do that. We had a question about which eagle determines the number of eggs laid from Pam Lord. So biologically, it's mom, because mom obviously produces the eggs in her body, and
lays them. There are some answers that I don't have. So mom has tended to lay 3 eggs. At one point, that was considered to be very unusual based on what we knew about eagles at the time. Admittedly, while we were researching them intensely, we weren't watching. We didn't have nearly as many to watch as we do now. And then there's some questions about, because obviously eagles are not like chickens, they don't just lay eggs all the time, whether or not those eggs are fertilized. There's been some questions about what role receptivity plays in encouraging egg production in the female. So we don't entirely have the answer to that, but yes, the female basically determines how many eggs are laid.
Okay. Sounds good. Regarding the North Nest, if it turns out the current eagles are not the original Mr. and Mrs. North, is it possible they left the area because of the events of last season? 2 clutches, the loss of the eaglets, and the nest. Thank you. One thing that I want to do is, I know specifically from the landowners there where the eagles had nested there before, where they typically perch and things like that, and I have not had the time to check in with them to see that. So that's one thing also, in addition to the ID stuff, is we're going to be talking to the locals there to see, are these eagles following some of the same patterns. That'll probably help us in our decision. But it could have been a number of different things. I don't know. I don't know if I don't have data to say, if the nest fails or they did have a second clutch.
Yeah.
So, they did their best, and I don't know that would have a factor on them consciously or making a decision to leave because of that.
Based on what we know about territorial eagles, it would be extremely unlikely for them to simply pack up and leave.
Right.
And it looks like we have a guest.
Yeah, we got a
Hold on
guest.
just a second here.
We'll
we have 2 guests. I am going to move, and we will have our guests come in.
So,
hey guys,
hi.
We are currently streaming from your shop. Come in, sit down, say hi to everybody.
We're at Willard and Mary Ellen's garage here, and that's where the Decorah Eagles have been broadcasted from for over 10 years now. And they just came in to say hi. I know. So if you guys want to come say hi, I guess this is a great opportunity to thank our landowners. So thanks, and our cooperating landowners that help us bring this. So you can see that you're on cam right there, but you can see that Willard and Mary Ellen are dressed up very nice and warm today too. It's probably in the 20s. So what do you think? We got a male eagle, female eagle this year, Mom Decorah, and they're building a nest. And what you like what's going on?
I do.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Good. Good.
It's a win-win situation.
Right. So anyway, just thought it'd be nice to have you guys say hi to the fans.
With the cooperation of everybody, that's good.
Right. So anyway, thanks again, Willard and Mary Ellen.
No problem.
Okay.
Good to be a part of it.
They're going to listen back here and see if they can answer any of the questions. So you guys raise your hand if you think that you can answer any of the questions, and I'll call on you. So, all right. I'm a very visual learner, and I was wondering if there are any life-size pictures of adult bald eagles. I have a life-size pic of great horned owl and would love to know if there are any of the eagles. We've got some HD pictures that I've blown up for classrooms, and I wouldn't say that they're life-size, but, we've got good enough quality pictures that could be.
And
so
we could also do it. Maybe what you're interested in would be an illustration that showed them to scale against one another to help you picture how big they are. That's certainly something we could do.
Right. So we whether it's cameras on the ground or the cameras up in the nest, we've got pictures that we can take that are good enough to blow up to be close to life size or life size. It's just a matter of how detailed is it going to be. And they're pretty good. They're pretty good. So I'd say the answer to that question is yes. Any from this side here of interest?
Hold on. Okay. From Team Carnes, Landon from my class asks how they stay focused to build a nest. And I guess my answer would be simply that they're programmed to do that. It's instinctual, innate behavior. It can be hard for people. You know, I can have a hard time focusing on things. But they don't really have to think about focusing. It's just something they do.
Yeah, it's really neat to watch what they do right now in preparation for the nesting season, and this is part of the pair bonding. We watch them, and this year, I guess I didn't talk much about the changes in what we did with cameras this year, but at this specific nest, and we've always had pretty darn good audio at the Decorah North nest, but thanks to some help from Jonathan and the Explorer folks, we've upgraded some of the audio here, and you can listen to the wing beats of the eagles leave the nest, crack and grab onto a branch, break it off, see them swing around and fly back and bring it into the nest. And I don't think I've ever heard so many cracking branches this year, and it's just it hasn't changed. I mean, it was always that way. It's just that we couldn't hear it in that good a quality. So those branches are around, the corn stalk, the grasses, the materials are there, and the eagles are just, they're nest builders. That's built into their DNA.
Yep.
So very good question. Thanks for Team Carnes.
And Marion Blossom, I see your question about ideal. Hit me up on email, and we'll discuss that. That's no problem at all.
Here's one. I don't know that I can answer this because, but we'll see what Amy thinks. Maybe Willard or Mary Ellen or Isaac can answer this. How do eagles pick their mates? Well, I can tell you one thing. It's got to be the right sex, male or female, right?
No, actually.
Well, there's helpers that come in.
So no. I mean, it's more common, but there are actually cases of homosexual and lesbian birds. And then there's the trio from Fulton, Illinois, not Iowa. Sorry.
Yeah, the trio nest. Yeah. Right.
So
but they can't have eggs if it was.
Well, they can't have eggs. Yeah, correct.
Or they can't fertilize and have hatched eggs.
Right.
Okay. I guess I'm not aware of research where they've paired up but just not been able to have lay eggs. I guess she'd lay eggs, but they wouldn't be fertilized, right? And they wouldn't hatch.
I don't know that she'd lay eggs. It's an interesting question.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to check in with the hardcore eagle biologist on this.
Sorry about the
That's a very good question. So,
but here are some things that let's say you've got a female eagle and a male eagle comes in and is interested in her. Here's some things he needs to do. He needs to bring her food gifts. This is also the case with falcons. The male really needs to prove that he can provide food because he'll be providing the majority of food during incubation in the very early days of brooding. He needs to be, I don't want to say submissive, non-aggressive. He needs to be able to partner with the object of desire on activities that increase the pair bond, which certainly includes copulation, but also includes nest building.
Yeah. We've seen them kind of, we call them little like love pecks, fights back and forth, and they kind of get feisty. I like to say it's feisty. I know if you ever look at cattle or sheep or whatever, they'll jump up in the air and they get kind of in that feisty mood.
Right.
Eagles tend to do that, and we don't know why, but they just do it like a lot of other animals do.
Or humans.
Or humans.
Yep, you got it. So, let's see. Question about eagle stuff, calendars, other things like that. What do you have? So I did mention that we've got some artwork coming up here from Verdale Forget, and that's a very beautiful graphite drawing, colorized, of the eagles. We've got calendars, right?
Right.
We got
beautiful calendars.
One thing
Sherry and Robin.
I like about those calendars is it's got some of the highlights of the season and when we expect them to happen on the calendar, so you kind of watch along with some of that stuff and look at the calendar. We've got our shirts. you guys know that these have been around for a while, but we got our Dad Decora memorial shirts. 10 years teaching us all about eagles through the live cams. T-shirts and things like that. There's coffee mugs. There's a link on our website for merchandise.
Yeah.
So if you want to take a look at that, that's where you can look at the stuff that we've put out. So
Ronan B asked if we were surprised to see a conflict over food between Umi 2 and Mom. No, no, we saw that with Dad too. Well, male or female eagle needs to be able to share food. They don't always share food, so no surprise in the least.
Yeah, I always thought that was interesting. I mean, I came into this really getting mostly focused on peregrine falcons with the Great Spirit Blood falcons, and then got really more into eagles and watching eagles in 2014, 2015. But I did hearing about this tea kettle thing, and it was always interesting how Mom Decora, whenever Dad had food, and she wanted it.
The tea kettle.
And remember that with raptors, that's a very common thing, is the male bringing in food and using it as a gift for the female. It's part of the bonding process. It's used for bringing her to a nesting location. But anyway, so he's bringing this food in, and they've got this worked out. When there's young there's food prep areas, there's caching areas and things like that. But Dad would bring something in, and Mom would come in and land, and she would be right up in his face.
Kind of stomp over.
And it wasn't just that, but it was this high-pitched kind of tea kettle whine, and it's like she would not let up or give up until he'd finally relent and give that food.
Sort of like humans.
Yeah, it's like, aren't you going to give me a piece of that? So, I don't think that was out of the ordinary at all.
Agreed.
Okay, let's see here. Has unidentified male eagle 1 been seen since Mom has picked unidentified male eagle 2 as her mate? There were some distinctive features of UME1, which we later started calling Decora male, because we thought, okay, this is the one.
Yes.
So we started calling him Decora male. He had some discoloration on his beak, and I guess the one question I've got is how long it takes for some of that to fade or shed or bleach. That's a question I haven't had answered yet, but there was a curved part of the nair that was different than the current eagle, and I've got a couple pictures of original UME1 or DM of his iris from folks that took pictures from the ground, and then a couple from our camera that are almost good enough to see if there's detail on the iris. Probably not, foolproof, but it looks like it's just not the same eagle by beak configuration and by the iris and some other patterns that go along with that. So that's some of that information that I'm going to release here in a couple weeks. But I don't believe that we've seen him back. Once there's a new male there, this territory is being defended by what we're calling unidentified male eagle 2 right now, and even more so now that they're into the pair bonding and nesting, and they've picked this location for their nest. It would get even more aggressive defense, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we think that. We do think they're a pair. So it's 2:54 right now, so maybe let's check in one more question, and then we can wrap things up here.
All right.
Stay on time. If anybody took an hour off of work to watch this, I'd be very impressed.
That would be very impressive. Okay. Let's see, I'm just scrolling up. Oh, Minnesota Lindabird. I'm glad you're doing well. Thank you for joining us today. I just saw your comment. Okay, for Willard and Mary Ellen, this is from Kansas Teacher. I've always wondered how your lives have been impacted with the arrival, noise, and popularity of the eagles. Do you hear them constantly calling to each other from your home, and are the eagle fans respectful of your property? And I will move here. I don't know if you want to come and answer the question, or...
Dear Don, you know more about it than I do.
How have they impacted our lives? All positive as far as I can say. We haven't had anything that has bothered us.
You hear him quite often, and
Yeah, well, certain times of the
See
year
them.
they're more, especially when the young are out there after they've fledged. But we hear them all the time.
sure. You haven't
Yeah,
lost any
yeah.
animals or anything like that, right?
No.
That's good.
Usually we can look out the house window, the kitchen window in the morning and see them sit on top of the tree out there. And in the evening, they're usually out the top of the tree,
Yeah.
looking for something to eat in the pond there. And then we put on quite a show
Sure.
going down after the fish.
So they're good. They can be good entertainment then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you guys have come out. You've done a little bit of cam operating here from the garage once in a while.
I used to, but it's got so high tech that
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
kind of afraid
Right.
to even touch it anymore.
Yep. So the other part of the question was how the fans who come and visit here, do they do a good job of respecting private property or ask and that kind of thing?
We really have no complaints about any of that. They're not, the Eagle people aren't trashy people. We have a bike trail right here, and they're not trashy people. So
Yeah.
it's a big plus.
They've kept it clean and been respectful.
Respectful,
That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Keep it up, all you out there.
Yeah.
Once in a great while.
All right.
you see it in cans or something.
People ask us if we watch the Eagles. I usually say, no, we watch the people watch the Eagles.
Oh, I love that.
That can be fun too.
Yeah.
That can be fun too. I remember Mom and Dad sitting in the maple tree over on the fish hatchery drive there, and I just remember kind of chuckling to myself. Somebody was telling people that they couldn't touch the tree. You know, it was like, oh, you can't touch the tree. There's something wrong with that, and it's just like I think I went up and touched it just to. Yes, I can.
Oh, you were channeling the
So,
spirit of Bob there.
people can get kind of just possessive with things like that, and we know that it's in good with good intentions, trying to care for the Eagles and do the best they can by the Eagles. So I guess there's nothing wrong with that. But well, I guess we'll wrap up here our Giving Tuesday broadcast again. Thanks for sharing some of your time listening to us, learning about the Eagles, asking your questions. I encourage you, if you've got young kids or others in their classrooms, tell them about the ad-free educational chat. They can watch the Decorah Eagles and follow along during the school year. It's free. Thank you, Explore, and helping us do that through YouTube and bringing that out to as many kids to learn about Eagles or through the Eagles as we can.
Right.
Thanks again to all our volunteers and donors who help keep us doing what we like to do. I've got one really nice big thick report here that Amy and I put my final stamp of approval and final touches on it, but Amy did an unbelievable job of putting together our annual report, which talks about primarily what we've done here with our falcon monitoring and banding program up and down the Mississippi River, all the way from northern Minnesota down into Peoria, Illinois.
Long territory.
72 falcons last year, handled and shown and watched and banded. And I'll leave it at that. So thanks again.
Thanks. You guys rock.
All right.